STME Giving Strength show, Domestic Violence, Support for Victims and Survivors. I'm Paula Jarman from Central Coast Community Women's Health Centre, Coordinator Wyong Outreach, and I'll be your host for today. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Darkin young people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Today we're discussing domestic violence with a focus on support for victims. With me today is my co-host Danielle Habib from Catholic Care. She is the Integrated Domestic and Family Violence Program Safe Homes Coordinator and Primary Prevention Education at Central Coast Family Centre. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you for having me. Our aim today is to find out why so many people are in the situation of not speaking up or not being able to around the issue of domestic violence, and what actions or ideas they could use to begin to move towards a better outcome. I need to let everyone know if you have an urgent issue or any issue around domestic violence, please call the 1-800 number, the 1-800 RESPECT number on 1-800-732-732.
Thanks, Danielle. All five of us will be responding to the questions that I'll be asking today. While today's focus on victims getting support, STME Giving Strength hope to bring you more episodes covering many other issues around domestic violence in the future. Danielle, can you please introduce our three guests from the panel today?
Sure. I'd like to warmly welcome Chris George from Interrelate. He is the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Community Liaison Worker. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Good morning.
I'd like to also welcome Nellie Srisurapon, Settlement Worker at Northern Settlement Services.
Hello, everyone.
And I'd also like to welcome Vanessa Molles from the Central Coast Domestic Violence Court Advocacy Service.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Just before we ask the first questions, I'd like to acknowledge and thank our sponsors who you see on the screen. In particular, thanks to Mercure Cooinda Waters Central Coast, who generously offered their venue, but we all needed to stay at home. Thanks to our editor, Atlantic Studios, for making us all look great. And thanks to all our sponsors. We couldn't do it without you. Now, I just want to remind everyone, if they could please ask questions and we will answer as quickly as possible. Again, if you need urgent support, please call 1-800-RESPECT on 1-800-737-732.
Thanks, Danielle. Let's start with the question of why. Why is it that some women don't seek support, or why can't they? Danielle, can I start with you? You would have a lot of experience with this in your work.
Thanks, Paul. Look, there's a whole range of reasons why women are unable to leave or don't leave. And we can see fear as a main factor as not being able to leave. We know that when women are preparing to leave domestic and family violence, or they've just left, it's the most dangerous time for a woman. The abuser may have threatened to also take their own life. So there's a lot of that emotional abuse which is tied up in there. People believe that the abuse is normal. You know, they may have grown up with their parents modelling unhealthy relationships. They may have grown up seeing domestic violence as the norm. Emotional abuse is a factor in all domestic violence, and emotional abuse can chip away at people's self-confidence and make them really doubt themselves. We see having no money, so a partner controlling finances as being a real issue why people may not be able to leave. Also being worried about being judged by family or friends. In particular, if the person has a disability, the survivor may possibly be the abuser and the person relies on the abuser. If someone's in a sexually diverse relationship, the abuser may threaten to out the person. There could also be a language barrier for people from a migrant background, but Nellie will talk about that shortly. And also love. So the person loves the abuser and essentially they want them to change. And there's those promises of change, particularly when we're looking at the cycle of violence. So we'll see the relationship going really well, and then we'll see a strain and stress and tension. Then we might see an explosion, and that may not be physical, that could be an angry explosion. And then we see the makeup period. So everything's fine again. And going well for a while, but then can tend to go back into that cycle, which we see so often happen.
Thanks, Danielle. You make some really interesting points there. Nellie, what specific challenges does domestic violence have on the multicultural community?
Well, I think moving to a new country has its challenges anyway. So, as Danielle explained, there are a lot of different areas that women have challenges experiencing domestic violence. But I think the main one for new migrants and refugees and long-term ones are settling in a new country and knowing the cultural norms. Language is a big challenge for new arrivals and even long-term residents, knowing where to get that information, seeing the information but not knowing how to interpret it or understand the information. There's also no support systems either. You've come from a country where there's a large community based, you've got extensive family around you, but coming here you might be quite isolated, so can't seek that information or be educated on the topic of domestic violence or power control. It's also expected of you. It may be that is it duty or a cultural duty that you are expected to stay with your partner, whatever you're experiencing. You're unaware of the systems and the process around you and where to seek help. So there are a lot of different layers. It might be that you're not eligible for any assistance, financial assistance as well. So it increases your dependency on your abuser as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Nellie. It seems like it's very complex when women move to the country.
It is. There are additional layers, let alone visas and all sorts of additional complexities.
Thank you. Chris, can you tell me what you see from your perspective around this issue of domestic violence?
Yeah, thank you for asking. From my perspective, I see men are involved in this process and in domestic violence in all aspects, insofar as we are survivors as well as abusers. So we need to be able to look at our role and what we're doing and genuinely accept the fact that whether you're an abuser or whether you're a survivor, you need to be able to make change. You need to be able to try and address that situation.
All right. Thanks, Chris, for your insight and your wisdom on this subject. Now to Vanessa, your service provides support within the court system. What do you see happening day to day? I suppose we're saying what are the outcomes your service is trying to achieve?
Okay, I guess firstly, we, although we understand that all matters don't go before the court, we do need to understand that domestic violence is a criminal offence. That's fore and foremost. On a day-to-day, we offer support to women who are experiencing and escaping domestic violence. We offer support through the court proceedings. We also offer a case coordination service, which means we offer support and referrals for women and children experiencing or, as I said, escaping domestic violence. That may require additional supports, counselling, case management, legal advice, just to name a few. We provide a safe space for what we call our safe room within our court, where women are required, when they're required to come to court, they can feel safe and secure in that space. We work very closely with the needs of the client, making sure that they have access to the right information and taking into account, obviously what's going on for them in their life right now. That again comes into legal advice and further supports where required. I guess what we also need to be mindful of is that whilst we are a women's service and the majority of victims are women, and we acknowledge that there are also males who experience domestic violence. There are other services like Interrelate where Chris is able to assist with that as well, and other service that we would refer if we had someone presenting with that. But overall, we are a women's service, and that's the support that we offer for women and children. So that's where we sit. We actually are, I guess, in a position that we are at the forefront of domestic violence because we receive all the referrals from police in relation to that. But we are an open door service that can offer support to women that don't feel safe going to police.
Okay, thank you, Vanessa. As a community, what actions can we take to try and prevent or stop this issue that's so prevalent in our society? Chris, can you go first with that question?
The main message I'd like to get across to men who are abusers is please don't do it. Please respect the people you live with, the people you're in a relationship with, enough that you will not hurt them and you will not try to damage them. I'd also like to look at the fact that other men need to stand up, speak out. There are a lot of men that are not abusers, but they are very well aware of what's going on. And we need those men to stand up and to actually ask the question, is that okay? Do I need to do something about this? Do I need to play a role? And in my mind, the answer is yes. Sometimes it's not easy to step in, but it is easy, or not easy, but it's really appropriate to at least instigate a conversation and try to do something, try to attempt to make a difference. I'd also like men to understand that we are role models, whether we feel like we are or we should be. We are role models for our younger men in our lives and our children and our sons, and we are the most prominent role model that they'll have. From the moment they're born, they're looking at us and they're taking on our behaviours and they're seeing what we do. So I really want the men that are abusers and the men that are in this situation to understand their actions are going to have an effect on the children and the people around them. Yeah, I think it's an awareness of that it's out there, and it's as I spoke about before, the role of other men to stand up, speak out, and be a passionate bystander and become involved. And as a community, I think we need to understand that respect needs to be at the forefront of our actions towards each other.
Thanks, Chris. And Nellie?
I think as far as the CALD community or the multicultural community, I think education is very important to recognise what domestic violence is within the Australian context or the Australian legal system, and what services are available for them, what that means, what sort of support is given around confidentiality, language resources, interpreters. I think the education through the community is very important, and to know where to seek help and in what circumstances to seek help and what that help will look like.
Thanks, Nellie. And Danielle?
Thanks, Paula. I think the best way to prevent violence against women and children is to look at promoting gender equality. We know that that's a primary driver of domestic violence, and that's looking at things like the condoning of violence against women, looking at the men's control of decision making and how they can limit women's independence, also including rigid gender roles and stereotypes that we have of particularly children, when we're raising them, and having that control over women growing up. Also looking at male relationships that emphasise aggression and disrespect towards women. So I think if we look at a range of gender equality, then we have healthier relationships from birth to old age.
Thanks, Danielle. And Vanessa?
I agree with everyone today. I guess it's exactly that. Speak up. Don't be that bystander. I guess you could be that voice for that woman who, as we know, women experiencing domestic violence or anyone experiencing domestic violence, they feel very vulnerable and don't have that voice. So I think definitely it's about speaking up. It's about, being a united team so that we can prevent this occurring.
Thank you. And I think that it's around primary prevention, getting into the schools, working with the young people and really teaching them about healthy relationships and what that looks like and how to communicate respectfully with each other, giving them those tools to resolve conflict in a more positive way. That's one of the things I think we really need to be funding and focusing on, I think, as the next generation, really.
I'd just like to add something from an Aboriginal perspective and as an Aboriginal male. Traditionally, in part of Aboriginal culture, we had a really strong sense of the role of Aboriginal men and the Aboriginal women, and it's referred to sometimes as men's business, women's business, and really that's about men's law and women's law. So I don't accept the fact that it is part of our traditional cultural practice, being abusive, and family was always the centre of our Aboriginal culture, and the respectful relationship between men and women and the way we respected each other's roles and how we lived within our own small communities was always at the centre of what we do. And I would just like to see that Aboriginal people and Aboriginal communities go back to making that the focus of their existence. I think it's really important that we start to understand and get back to respectful family relationships.
Thanks, Chris. That's a powerful statement. Lastly, I'd like to ask you all for your one word that is an action that viewers can take to either move towards the changes or action we may have suggested in the last questions.
I'd like to say respect, because, and I'll talk about our organisation, we offer lots of processes and programs around respectful relationships and family respect.
Thank you. Nellie?
I think I've got two messages, and one would be for the women out there, if they're experiencing domestic violence, find out and know that there's help. So find out and know that there is help for you. And for the community to be aware of the challenges. Everybody isn't the same, and to be aware of different community members that are experiencing different challenges when going through the power and control of domestic violence.
Thank you. Danielle?
My one word would be equality. For reason being is when we can treat each other as equals, male and female or non-binary, when we can treat each other as equals, then we reduce domestic and family violence.
Thank you. Vanessa?
Again, speak up. Know you're not alone in this. There's support and there's services that can help you through this.
Thank you. And my one is resilience, because I see women as being amazingly resilient. You know, they set up their new homes, they look after the children, they look after the finances, they move on. So even though in the middle of it and they feel the anxiety and the trauma, I want to give them the message that innately they're very resilient and they will start a new life. And there's services out there to support them do that. So thanks everyone for great discussion and insights today. I think, the knowledge and wisdom that you've all brought to the forum is really amazing. We hope to bring you plenty of future episodes on this topic to keep you informed. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Remember, you can also watch us through all the social medias by liking the Stronger Than My Excuses pages. Please ask a question or leave a comment. We're available to support you and anyone you want to share the show with who might benefit. I'd like to thanks again to our guest, Nellie Srisurapon from Northern Settlement Services.
Thank you.
Vanessa Molles from Central Coast Domestic Violence Court Advocacy Service.
Thanks for having me.
Chris George from Interrelate.
Thank you very much.
And a huge thank you to Paula Jarman from Central Coast Community Women's Health Centre for hosting.
You're welcome.
Paula.
Please thank my co-host Danielle Habib from Catholic Care.
Thanks. It's been great, Paula, to be here. And thanks for bringing us together for this discussion. And remember, if you need any help with domestic and family violence, please call the 1-800-RESPECT number on 1-800-737-732. And please keep on to watch the credits, as we've got a whole range of Central Coast Domestic Violence Support Service information for you.
Thanks to all our sponsors. We appreciate you all supporting this important issue. Thanks for watching. See you all later.